What was it about the modern fan or modern fandom that called to you as a topic that you wanted to try to unpack in this Q&A style?
We have so many clients across such a wide range of industries in the entertainment and media space, from theater to entertainment to media to sports. The unifying element of that is fandom. And so I think we all can learn a little bit of something from somebody else. And so we have access to so many smart folks. And I think it's a gift to be able to sort of say, can we bring all these smart people together, have conversations we can all learn a bit from each other.
You're listening to Fandom Unpacked, the podcast, an audio version of our regular live stream series where we unpack modern fandom with some of the brightest minds in sports and entertainment. I'm producer Peter Yajicek, and in today's episode, we'll hear a conversation between our host, Damian Bazadana, CEO and founder of Situation Group, and John Loken, EVP of Marketing at the Recording Academy, about what the Grammys can teach us about fandom. Here's Damian and John.
So John I've known John for years. I think we met back at Ticketmaster days, and but he's executive vice president at the Recording Academy and a key player at the Grammy Awards. Before we actually get into fandom around the Grammys, just as an icebreaker, aside from music, just out of curiosity, what are you a fan of? I like to hear people's kind of internal fandom of what lights you up.
Is there a world outside of music? No, I think of fandom as kind of anything that you're passionate about. And I think with social media and just sort of the digital age in general, we have a platform to express those passions and to dive deeply into those passions. So for example, I'm a total nerd about politics. When I'm driving into Los Angeles every week, I'm listening to all the crazy podcasts, that are out there about politics. And I think this is what is wonderful about the era that we live in, is that whatever your interest is, you could be into sneakers, you could be into whatever, some super obscure type of literature. It's all there available to you. And I know we're going to talk about this with the Grammys and with music fandom, but it's a wonderful world to have eclectic. It's a wonderful time to have eclectic tastes and to be interested in a broad spectrum of things.
Will the Dodgers beat the Yankees?
Absolutely.
I'm just kidding. This meeting's over. All right, let's take us inside the Recording Academy. And because the Grammys obviously are the shiny object and obviously a substantial part of it. But it'd be helpful, I think, sort of set the table for context. I know you have an awesome team from behind the scenes, also on the marketing and social media front. You guys do a lot of work. But it would be helpful just to set the context a little bit more about the Recording Academy, if you can.
Yeah, a lot of people know us for the Grammys, but they don't know that there's a nonprofit behind the Grammys called the Recording Academy. It's an organization, a professional organization that's been around for 67 years, founded in 1957. And the Grammy Awards, which the first telecast was in 1958, has been the sort of, we think of it as the graduation ceremony that follows an entire year of activity. We have about 22,000 members across 12 chapters across the U.S. It breaks down roughly 13,000 people who vote on the Grammy Awards. They're qualified to be voters. We can talk about that. There's another 3,000 to 4,000 who are professional members. And then we have about 6,000 to 7,000 Grammy U members. These are both students who are matriculated at university, and it's a 6-year program. So from the time you're a freshman and you join Grammy U, you can stay through your college experience and then 2 years after. We just opened that up to non-matriculated young people who are under 29, but who are actively pursuing a career in music. And the way I tend to think about this and the way we think about this in marketing is we think that brand impact is a formula, and it's really about the reach that you have and the reputation that you have. And those two sort of reinforce one another. Grammys is obviously a huge moment of reach. We've been getting more and more people each year now to actually watch linear television, that big black rectangle in your mom's living room. But it's about the reputation and the work that we do and the mission that we have, which is to advocate for music people and to serve them. And that's really our purpose. So it's those two things working in concert with one another year round. That's what the marketing team does.
How do you? So take me into your team's approach to building fandom around kind of all activities with the Recording Academy. So in one respect, I would imagine you spend significant efforts to build fandom around the award show itself. But at the same time, I would imagine a significant part of your role is about engaging like the tens of millions of social followers from the nominated artists. Like, how do you navigate that in terms of where most of your efforts spent in sort of capturing fandom and how you think about it?
For sure. I mean, when you get your nominated list of artists, and we're going to have our big nominations live stream on November 8th, that's almost the casting, if you will, for your story and for the narratives that follow from November 8th to February 2nd when our telecast happens. So it's a natural thing to say, okay, I don't know yet, but we will probably have nominated music from, Taylor Swift, from Billie Eilish, from Beyonce. You would be derelict in your duties as a marketer if you didn't somehow figure out how to tap into those audiences, because they're not only massive audiences, they're extremely fervent, right? It's an extremely active audience. And what's kind of cool about a lot of this too is certain artists have become really savvy about creating lores and legends within their ecosystem. So it's not just I put out an album and I go on tour. It's I drop different little Easter eggs. I'm putting out singles, videos, posts. Our job is to tap into that and to harness that. And what's sometimes tricky about it is people don't really think about it this way. But if you have 8 artists nominated for Record of the Year, say, for every one artist who wins, right, whose dreams come true on that night, and the dreams of their fans come true on that night, you have 7 artists whose dreams are crushed, and you have 7 fandoms whose dreams are crushed. And so we as a brand feel that big time in our socials, because they take it very personally. Half of our social posts, there's always somebody who comments, justice for Nikki or whatever. Listen, this is the reality of fandom. And so we try to harness it. We try to tell a positive story. Certainly we're very active in that sense from that sort of November through February period. But the other thing I would definitely point out is we spent a lot of time over the last few years thinking about the 22,000 members, right? This kind of core nucleus. A lot of these are very celebrated artists and personalities and creators and influencers in their own right. Many of them get nominated. Many of them have won lots of Grammys. That's a different type of fandom that we need to tap into. We've always historically avoided shining the spotlight on voting members because people who are voting don't want to get inundated with for your consideration campaigns. But what we found this year anyway is that the new voting members are extremely proud to have made it into that echelon. And we've used a lot of that content in social as well. People are sharing their excitement about what's coming up this Grammy season.
Can we talk through some of the I'll call the attributes of the fan bases that you think kind of get it right? And we don't need to name names as much. Feel free, I suppose, but really, I feel like you see the fan bases that you just feel like there's either a deep connection or they just have the ability to, I don't know, drive them to action. Like, are there any attributes you see that you kind of like learnings you could take from that you feel like you could share?
Yeah, that's a great question. I hadn't really thought about it, but I think that vulnerability and just being very transparent about who you are. I think we're seeing something really interesting playing out right now with Chappell Roan. You've seen this in sports. You've seen this in a few different areas where people are willing to be a little bit more kind of hard on their sleeve and talk about the things that they're thrilled about, but also to talk again very authentically about the things that they're worried about, including their mental wellness. That's part of it. I think a big part of it for anybody who publishes in social media, whether you're an artist or the Grammy Awards, it has to be a conversation. I think what we've really seen over the last few years is, and by that I mean a two-way dialogue, right?
Yeah.
we actually just hired a social content producer whose sole responsibility is to engage with the community. And again, the next time somebody says, justice for Nikki, ask them what that means, and use it as an opportunity. Again, we're not trying to persuade people, but
Yeah.
if we could educate them even just a little bit about how the process works, and to maybe take a little bit of the venom out of some of that, I think that is hugely helpful.
Fandom Unpacked is brought to you by Situation, an award-winning marketing agency built for live entertainment that champions the power of unforgettable shared experiences around the world. We offer full marketing and creative services for experience-based brands in live entertainment, attractions, theater, sports, arts and culture, and more. Check us out at situationinteractive.com. Now back to our Q&A.
I took my son to a Travis Scott concert at MetLife Stadium 2 weeks ago or something like that. And, I got up to speed with a lot of his music and stuff. But what's fascinating to me during the concert, he looked about halfway through, he looks at the VIP deck and points at them and says, "I hate VIPs. I hate you." Like, I hate you, pretty much, right?
Right.
The whole place goes nuts. And I think even people in the VIP section were like, "You're right." They spent thousands of dollars, right? And it is the essence of his brand, of how he carries himself and how he thinks about like connecting with people. So the idea of VIP, even though they exist, it was fascinating, but yet makes total sense with him, with Travis Scott in particular, which I think you could see the love from the audience, the whole stadium. It was kind of fascinating to me. I said, what other field can you do that where you blast the people who spend the most money on your brand?
Well, it's funny. I was getting dragged to Lana Del Rey concerts because my girlfriend just is a super fan. She's a complete nut. And Lana does something really interesting in the middle of her show. She will just stop the music and she will get off the stage and she'll just start talking to fans one-on-one, and they're giving her flowers. And, the other 12,000, 18,000 people are kind of like, what are we doing? But again, it's really about holding space. It's about having this direct connection that says, and this is, by the way, I think it's remarkable. This is completely different from the world, certainly, that I grew up in. The world I grew up in, you would buy a ticket to go see a band that you loved at a stadium or an arena. And there was such a distance, right? There was such a kind of a mystery. And we thought these people were gods, right? And again, same in sports. Whatever you're a fan of, there was this real sort of separation between the life of that deity, right, and me as a commoner, as a fan. And all of that, I think social drives us, right? All of that has been erased, where the artists who get it and who do well absolutely just embrace it, and to a sometimes, really interesting and odd extent.
Peter, I think we have a question. Or a couple
we do. Well, I'm gonna, first of all, when you told that story about the I hate VIPs, I thought you were saying your son was saying that, and I was gonna say that's a different conversation. But
and trust me, we did not buy the VIP ticket.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to pull on something, John, that you said a little bit about, the Easter eggs that were, artists are creating in their songs and their videos and their social media posts, and kind of relate it to what you said about the role that you just hired to do the production and help you guys out with your social media and engage in that conversation. Is crafting these kinds of engagements something that a lot of artists want to embrace themselves, like Lana Del Rey, having those one-on-one conversations, or are they outsourcing it? And do you have any sense of like what's the risk there of somebody finding out that you weren't really talking to the artist, but that you were talking to their social media team?
From my experience, it used to be that it was the rarity, the artist who really wanted to authentically engage. And you started to see this change around 2003, 2004 with Friendster, and then MySpace, where the savvier musicians, I used to be at that time, I ran an independent label that was all about punk rock, and we had bands out on the Warped Tour. And it was the ones who would really embrace that 20 years ago. From an artist or a creator perspective, this is a new muscle. This is a completely different sort of way of being. You create art, of course, but now you also are creating community, essentially. Fast forward 20 years, now the exception is the artist who doesn't really want to get involved. And you know, not to call people out, you do see sometimes in the social media feeds of some of the older, maybe more traditional artists where it's pretty clear they're not the ones with their, you know, thumbs on the screen. But I would say the majority now are absolutely hands-on. And if they're not directly hands-on, again, like if you're Beyonce, you have a team. But you're almost certainly involved in those decisions as to what is being posted each day, each week. You would never kind of take your eyes and hands off of that process.
Got it. One of the questions that came in from our attendees was about recognition. So at award shows, many artists make sure they thank their fans first and foremost, like at the Grammys, for whatever recognition they just received. Has there been an evolution in the ways that music artists thank their fans in recent years beyond the shout out from the podium? How are you seeing any trends in maybe using social media platforms for artists to take that thanks even further to their fans?
I will say that this is a peculiar question to answer for the Recording Academy and the Grammys specifically, because our award is not a fan award. Unlike People's Choice, unlike I think the VMAs is voted on by fans. I think the American Music Awards, if I'm not mistaken, used to be voted on by fans. Ours isn't. So I actually wish that when people got up, they would thank the 13,000 people who voted for them. And some of them do. Again, you see this a little bit more with the Oscars, with the Emmys, where they will thank the Academy. Literally the musicians, in our case, the creators who voted for them. But I do think that this is part of what we're talking about, which is artists recognize that fans pay their bills. I mean, it's ironic to hear that Travis is yelling or calling out the VIP folks, because those are absolutely the people that are helping him buy his fourth mansion in, you know, Telluride or whatever. I think as the live side of the business has really come to dominate how at least that top sort of 1% or 5% of artists makes their money, they absolutely shout out to the fans, because these are the people that buy tickets. And, you know, 75% of the income for these folks is derived from live touring and sponsorship. And all of that is fan driven. So I think if anything, we're just going to see that kind of trend increase, where it's just more and more about the people that got you there. And they recognize that.
Yeah. I also in the Travis Scott concert, what I appreciated is he put a lot of his fans up on stage and let them rage on stage, and it does scream of authenticity of like to his core base. It's kind of remarkable. It's an incredible show. Recognizing there's a crazy past there. How do you transform casual engagers into diehard fan? Like you're an organization is going year round. You have this obviously major Grammys moment. Like, how do you kind of keep up the engagement ongoing? And like, so how do you think about that? Because, you know, everyone looks forward to the award show, and then the award show is over, and your job and your entire team's job is like, how do you keep that pulse going?
Obviously, following the telecast, our storytelling changes, and we start to focus more on the work that we do for music makers year round. The ability to harness all that interest, right? Whether I started following you because I am part of the Beehive, or I started following you because, you know, I'm a Swiftie or whatever. But now you've got my attention, and now I see that you're in Washington, D.C., advocating for the rights of human music creators. Wow, what's that? What's that about? Oh, well, it turns out that artificial intelligence is potentially quite risky to the distribution and creation of music. Oh, tell me more. So whether it's through our email network or our social followership, we have been able to shift a little bit and to talk about that and shine the spotlight on that as a means to retain the new followers. And so far, so good. We've seen much lower attrition rates over the last 6 months than we typically do. So I think every brand is different. Our brand is incredibly episodic. You know, last thing I'll just say is it's really tricky. The analogy I always give is Imagine you're the manager of the Gap and you're at this mall, and your store, your Gap, is only open for business one day a year. And so you have to make all of your product decisions, your staffing decisions, your pricing decisions, your advertising decisions, everything based on one little window of data. And then the store closes, and then you have to start planning for your big one-day sale the next year. It's hard, and you don't have time to iterate in real time. There is no real time. It's one day, essentially.
Peter, you want to take these?
Yeah, we got a
Yeah.
couple more questions that have come in. It seems like there's a shift now where in the past, entertainers would open themselves up more, hire a team, et cetera, to connect with fans. Now it seems entertainers' celebrity status is forming as social following grows, and then they break into different outlets. Do you think the change in how celebrities build their fame has impacted the way fans engage them?
100%. We think of artists like Lady Gaga now as much as an actress as a musician. You know, and Travis and Rihanna with Fenty. Like, there's all these different examples now where, because they move into these sort of adjacent spaces, there's new opportunities for fandom. Literally, the fandom itself can become richer. So I may not be a fan of someone's music, but I love their sneaker line. So it really does expand the sphere pretty dramatically.
Yeah, or maybe they started with a podcast and then moved into music.
Exactly.
Another question from wanted to get in here. The Grammys have so many categories, and some are very specific types of music. How do you help the less mainstream celebrate their fandoms?
This is so cool. It almost seems like y'all have been following me around in my calendar for the last week, because this has literally all been discussed in meetings within the last few days. We did a call, I think it was Monday, or sorry, it was last Monday, with the independent music community. And we have an event on the Sunday morning called the premiere ceremony. That's where we give out 84 Grammy Awards. That's sort of the non-telecast awards. And in that, you have the classical field, you have the jazz field, you have country, you have rap, you have jazz, you have all these different categories. And so it is fandom writ large, because these are kind of silos, right? I mean, there's some Venn diagram between classical fans and hip hop fans, but it's not huge. And so it's really a place where you have to tell sort of individual stories targeted to those niches. Our solution for this is that we want to invite, just in the case of the independent music scene, we want to invite more of the independent media into the premiere ceremony, and possibly into our social feeds leading in, so that some of these little niches, these communities, these micro communities, feel like they're a part of the bigger Grammy story. To me, it's not about the size of the audience. It's about the passion and the noise that audience can make, and how authentic they are to their community.
Damien, anything else that you wanted to try to hit on before we start wrapping up?
No, I think we got through most of the questions, which is awesome. And thank you, everyone, for submitting the questions. I feel like we covered a lot. And I would just say, John is always giving with his time. We go way back, and I feel like we've geeked out on experiential, live theater, sports, you name it. He brings just an awesome curiosity and generosity. So I genuinely appreciate your time. And I feel like we might have to pull you back for a part 2 after the show. We could do kind of a before and after of
Let's do it.
Of what happened. But you're just a great spokesperson for the Grammys, but just a great person all around. So I really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thank you guys. This is a really fun opportunity. And do add me to the list, because I want to come back and join more of these.
That's going to do it for this episode of Fandom Unpacked, the podcast. If you liked what you heard, please be sure to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Find out how to join us live for an upcoming recording at situationlive.com/fan. We'll see you next time, true believers.